Good morning, everybody. Thanks for attending this meeting. My name is Dan Rose. I'm the Vice Chair of the Regional District. Chair Sperling has asked me to open this meeting, and he will talk to you guys a little bit later on in the agenda. We just ask, if possible, you can hold your questions until the question period at the end, because many of the questions you may have may be dealt with in the agenda with the various agencies that we have here to provide information. I'd also like to thank MLA Dan Davies, MP Bob Zimmer, PRRD board members Brad Sperling, Karen Goodings, Lorraine Machete, and Rob Fraser for attending. All the PRRD staff that's here and have been working all week long in the EOC. Sean, Tyra, Trish, Fran, Ed, Kirsten, and Trevor. Also, we have from West Trek Geotech, Rhonda Mellifont, and various other agencies that are here to help support this. I'd like to turn it over to Sean Dolan, the acting CAO, to start the program.
Thank you, Dan. My name is Sean Dolan. I'm the acting CAO for the Peace River Regional District. Trish Morgan has worked as the EOC director over the past week and will help us keep on agenda today. Tyra Henderson has worked as a risk manager over the past week and will help track our questions. The Peace River Regional District opened its EOC on September 30th in response to a landslide that occurred in the Old Fort area sometime on Saturday night or early Sunday morning, blocking access on the Old Fort Road. At today's meeting, we will hear from the engineering geologist, Rhonda Mellifont, about the status of the landslide and why the community of Old Fort was put on an evacuation order. Provincial agencies and utility providers will report what they have done in the community since EOC opened on September 30th. Peace River Regional District will update the residents what plans they are working on. This meeting is being live streamed, so folks who could not attend this meeting can watch it and send their questions via email to be asked during the meeting. Please send your questions to eoc.info1@prrd.bc.ca, and they're going to have that listed up on the board. This meeting is to bring residents up to date on the decisions made and to answer as many questions as possible. We understand that this is a very stressful time for everybody, so please direct your questions and comments in a respectful manner. All of the agencies here today are sharing information and working together to try and find resolve. Thank you. Over to Trish.
Thanks, Sean. So I'll just let everyone know the order of the presenters. So next we're going to have Rhonda Mellifont from West Trek Geotech, and then Ministry of Transportation and Yellowhead Road and Bridge will come up and make a presentation. We do have someone dialing in from the Ministry of Energy and Mines. We've got BC Hydro. I don't think we have a TELUS representative today, unfortunately. The RCMP, Emergency Management BC, and then the City of Fort St. John, who has been providing emergency social services. And then the Peace River Regional District, we will give you some ideas of some of the plans we're working on, and then we'll do our best to take as many questions and try to give you as many answers as possible. So on to Rhonda.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to just apologize. The other day, I was supposed to be on the website on the Facebook page. I had to go back out to the field, so I wasn't able to provide you with information that day. However, I will do that today so that you guys have a little bit more to go on. Okay. Oh, I need the map. Yeah. All right, so I was retained by the Peace River Regional District to come up and do an emergency risk assessment on the current landslide activity in the area. And I came up Friday night, and I've been in the field pretty much nonstop Saturday and Sunday, and was out again this morning to do another helicopter survey. Most of our preliminary review has been based on helicopter survey and ground truthing, and then that's been supplemented by information from MOTI and Ministry of Mines to help us come to the most clear picture we can at this point in time. I do need to mention that this is very early in the process, and we are only able to collect certain amounts of information while the landslide is still active. So what I can tell you about the landslide itself is that it is a very deep-seated failure. It's often groundwater related, but we don't have enough information to tell you a cause at this point in time. These large landslides often move in zones. So you'll see we've got another map that shows our slides. So there's slide 1, yeah, which is the main slide, which is the one that went overnight on September 30th. And we have a slide off to the west or southwest. And then we've actually had some activation of a slide on the east as well, which we found out this morning. So we have, these landslides tend to continue to evolve, and they're very unpredictable. It's hard for us to say exactly which parts of it are going to let go, which ones aren't, and how it's going to affect the land around it. So again, I want to stress that this is very preliminary information, and we have no way of doing further investigation on it until the landslide actually stops moving. So at this point, we are continuing to do monitoring, mostly visual observation, but also we've been receiving a lot of LiDAR information from Ministry of Transportation, which gives us a little bit of a closer look at it topographically. Sorry guys, I'm not much of a public speaker. I'm usually in the field. So, as I mentioned before, we're not able to investigate with a drilling investigation or anything like that until the landslide stops moving, because it's not safe to be out there. Unfortunately, the bad news is we have to wait for it to stop moving, but it also takes several months to do that analysis. So it is going to be a little while. So what I'd like to do is actually, can we zoom in on the slide area? Is tell you guys a little bit about what I've seen out there and why we recommended that the area be evacuated. Okay. I'm just going to ask, can you guys see the laser pointer at the back? Yeah, okay, great. So the main slide itself, based on the information from MOTI regarding the progression early last week, is that slide's moving at about 5 to 10 meters per day. Recent activity, just based on our visual observations from the helicopter survey, has indicated that that's closer to the high end of that range, and it doesn't appear to be slowing down at this point. When we went out in the helicopter this morning, the slide had actually reached the channel next to the river. So it's come down quite a ways. That, unfortunately, has activated a relic landslide on the west side. Now, we've shown that based on visual measurements in the change in the road and in the headscarp of the slide, so the top end of there, it's moving at least 4 meters per day, and that's, I just want to clarify that when I give you those numbers, that's not something that you can rely on to time pre-entry. That it's incredibly unpredictable. So these slides could give at any moment, or they could slow down and then give again. It's just, we can't base it on that, but I give you those timelines to show that it's still moving significantly. Okay. Can I get you to go down just a little bit? Okay. So with these large slides over here, we are showing tension cracking all throughout the area below here. And that is continuing to radiate out in this direction as well as this direction. So unfortunately, because we found this additional information about slide 1 today, this actually extends all the way down here, and the cracks radiate out further. So we just did this last night, so that tells you how much movement there actually has been. Okay, and just up a little bit. Okay, and I'm sure you guys are all aware of the activity that's going on up here. I can't comment on that. I'm going to leave that with Ministry of Energy and Mines. But with this, I don't know if you guys can see it clearly, there's kind of a knob just on the east side of the main slide, and that is starting to fail in this direction. In addition to that, we've noticed tension cracking all along this area, right up to the next ridge. And that has actually fallen 2 to 3 meters over the last 24 hours. So if you could scroll out just a little. A little bit more. So just as it is difficult to predict when it would stop, it's also very difficult to predict where it's going to go. So with the tension cracks we're seeing over here, there's the potential of failure in this direction as well as this direction. And with the amount of material up there, estimated volumes make it similar to what we would see runout-wise for this side. Again, that hasn't been confirmed. That's just an estimate at this point in time. So that runout going all the way down to the river, you can see how that would impact some of the homes here. In addition to this, and this is based on the LiDAR data provided by MOTI again, and wouldn't be something that we could catch via visual observation from the helicopter. If you could just go to the right a little bit more. Oh, yeah, down a little. Sorry, guys. Yeah, there we go. There has also been some deformation of a relic landslide over in this area. And we are continuing to monitor that. It is not a failure, but it is a deformation, which could be a sign of impending failure. So based on everything that we've seen in here so far, it's not safe for habitation in that area right now. I cannot tell you that it would be safe to return home at this point in time. And because this is so unpredictable, it's very difficult to comment on when that's going to be possible. Just a sec. Okay. So, because we can't guarantee the safety of the residents in that area, we had to recommend an evacuation order. And we are discussing options for re-entry temporarily for certain situations, but that will go through EOC. That's not something that I'm going to answer here at this point in time, but I am working with them to figure that out. Okay. So, just in summary, with the potential for a slide in this area and the deformation here, you can see how there's the potential for it to impact the entire subdivision. And so I hope that answers some of your guys' questions on that end. And unfortunately, it gets a little bit worse because we're coming up on winter conditions. Okay, we're going to have a lot of precipitation, whether it be rain or snow, and with exposed soils in these existing failures, it has the potential to worsen the conditions and possibly speed up the process. Add in that we're going to be dealing with freeze-thaw conditions this fall as well as in the spring. Unfortunately, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, you guys. I'm really sorry. Didn't make the landslide though. I think that's most of what I have to say. I do have some photos to show you guys of the failures so you can see how significant it is. I didn't prepare a formal presentation because I've been out in the field. I mean, we were still out looking at roads at 12 a.m. last night. So, so bear with me. The exposure on the photo is not great, but yeah, go ahead. If we could go to the October 6th for, yeah, okay. I'll have to zoom in quite a bit. So what I'm looking for is just to the right of the knob up in the top left-hand corner. There. This area here was showing tension cracks on October 6th. And if you go out of that photo, and there should be another one for the east there. For October 8th. Oh shoot, sorry guys. It shows the 2 to 3 meter drop, and unfortunately I won't be able to grab that really quickly for you. It's the west and east on October 6th. Okay, so that's kind of a, oh, I labeled that wrong. Again, not a formal presentation. So this is just showing, if you could go to the left. Yeah, there we go. So the main landslide on October 6th, and then go to the one for October 8th. Yeah. Oh, that's the west side. So, sorry, just close that one out. Weston, Maine, I believe, is October 8th. Okay. back out again. Sorry, guys. Okay, and the very top one, I believe is, oh yes, sorry. This is the other one from, that's October 6th again. So can I just pop that laptop up here? Will it stretch? That way I can just use the mouse to point. Thanks, guys. Yeah. I'm a little bit tired. Common sense is escaping me at that point. Uh-oh. Okay. All right. I'll just hold it. It's okay. As soon as we get it back up and running. Okay, so I have been taking hundreds of photos over the past few days, and I'm going to be supplying a lot of them to the Peace River Regional District so they can add that into some of their notifications and just give you guys a little bit more information and a little more visual on what it is that we're looking at and why we've moved forward with the actions that we have. In fact, what I can do, instead of us sorting this out right now, and you guys patiently waiting, for everyone else to present as well, I'm gonna provide them with those photos so that we can upload them later today, and that way you guys can check them out on the Facebook page. I will add comments for each of them just describing what we're seeing, and oh, perfect, great, okay. Okay, so this is an overview of the whole area on October 6th. Now, it's very faint, but we did have some of the west landslide cracking showing just along here. And that is a result of this slide pushing against this side and activating that additional landslide. Now, that western side has then radiated down into this section here as it's dropped off. And those cracks are extending all the way down to the channel just inside, actually, just inside here. This is a little bit of an island here. Okay, then for the main slide, again, this was October 6th. This slide has actually progressed all the way down to the channel at the bottom now. So it's traveled an additional 380 meters in less than 48 hours. This knob here, thank you. You're doing a great job. I'm just going to skip the mouse. Okay. Okay. So you can see the crack running down the middle of it. That has actually dropped anywhere from 8 to 10 meters down this side, and that in turn has pushed the soil here further down slope and created more cracking, as well as causing cracking along here, which is now mobilized 2 to 3 meters down slope. So again, on the east side, we're only showing deformation at this point. We're not showing actual failure, so we'll continue to monitor that. We're continuing to monitor how much movement we're having in this area, along the main slide, and on the western side. So we are in early discussions with the Peace River Regional District on the monitoring plan, as well as once the slides stop, what the detailed study would be to work out what we can do here long term. So I know we're waiting for questions at the end. Sorry, that's normally where I'd go at this point, but I think that's about all I have to present today. But I will provide you guys with more information that you can put on the Facebook page for everyone. Okay.
All right, well, I will just pick it up for now. And MOTI and YRB, you guys can come up, and I'll let you organize however you like.
I'm Rodney Hafner with Yellowhead Road and Bridge. I'm the operations manager. We've put together a slideshow with kind of photos of the progression, and this is Scott Maxwell.
Hi there, I'll let Rodney speak to the start end of this, but my name's Scott Maxwell. I'm the Executive Director for the Northern Region for the Ministry of Transportation.
Let's grab that laser pointer. So from the last meeting, I know you guys had requested seeing kind of some progression photos, so we've been working on getting those for you. So this is just a photo that was taken October 6th of kind of that main knob there that's sliding down. And this is the right at the road there. So this would have been September 30th when it was first noted, and then October 1st there's quite a bit of movement obviously. October 2nd you can see that what was here is pushed over to this side, and then October 5th quite a bit, and just starting to see the tension cracks in the road there on this October the 6th. The toe of the slide just showing some of the movement there. Obviously this is when you guys still had ATV access and were able to get through. It was blocked off completely October 2nd, and we actually started to see it widening out into that gravel pullout. October 5th quite a bit farther, and then on the 7th you see the tension cracks really developing in that gravel pullout. Road cracks to the west of the slide. This is just west of the access there down to the houses. We started to see the cracks on the 2nd, and quite quickly within a few days it started to become impassable, and then on the 7th there it was a meter high and we're not able to get vehicles through anymore. These are the road cracks as well to the west, and just showing the sudden change there. This is the Point Hill. We're showing the cracks. This is just, I happen to take a picture of the moose, and you can't even tell that there's a crack. Within 3 days it's developing, and then on the 7th you've seen the minor scarp there develop about another meter. So this is just a photo of the power lines. Hydro's had quite the ordeal there with the 5th. You can see the lines have some tension on them, and then on the 7th, 2 days later, these aren't even supported by the ground anymore. This photo is just an overview of the slide. This is early on. This would have been October 1st, and I just found this diagram online to kind of give some terminology that we've been using to help you guys kind of understand what we're explaining. I mean, Brent did a very good job at the last meeting getting that information out. But just kind of an example is there's the main scarp here would be kind of up near the gravel pit, and then there's several minor scarps throughout. One would be that west slide we're talking about. You can see it developing. We also have lots of tension cracks throughout. The landmass building at the bottom that's visible with the top slide right at the road, we can see it, it's moving up just as much as it was out, and that's where you can see the mass just building up there as it works its way down towards the river. And then we have some access options that MOT has been working on. I'll let Scott talk on that.
Yeah, so part of our key message, so Yellowhead Road and Bridge is our main contractor that we have, and we will be using them. They've got crews and equipment on standby. We're just really waiting for the right moment to go in. We have our best geotechnical engineers. We actually do have George Warnock, who's our Provincial Director of Geotech Engineering, on the call today, so if there are any specific questions, he can help answer those. Of course, Rhonda's expertise is going to be useful as well. There we go. Thanks. So our focus of the Ministry of Transportation, working with Yellowhead Road and Bridge, is primarily on the road access. So we're just trying to make sure that we can get in as quickly as we possibly can. So our preferred route right now is to try to get the road reestablished close to where it is. As you've seen from Rhonda's thing, her presentation earlier, that's challenged. The slide is still moving. This is not, I want to be clear, this is not a question of resources. If we had to park vehicles and equipment and reestablish this road on a daily basis, we would do so. This is a question of safety right now. So right now, basically what we've done in this map is obviously dynamic. We've just put this up just to kind of demonstrate some of the options that we're showing here. So you just, have you got that? Oh, that's the one. Perfect. So basically, we're looking every direction possible. So we're looking north, south, east, and west. One of the key things here is we have not had the opportunity yet to talk to some of the private landowners, some of the other issues that are out there. Each of these issues has challenges, whether it be environmental, whether it be private. As we're knowing from the dynamic situation of the landslide itself, some of the options we thought were options are maybe not options now. But the key message I wanna get across to everyone in the room here today is while we're watching, we're monitoring, we've got flights every day getting LiDAR to help Rhonda, to help our geotech team give us the green light to make sure that it's safe to go in. We're concurrently looking at all these other options to see if there's other ways to get people's access into the community. So with that, yeah, I think we'll just skip on. And then we'll save the questions for the end. So thank you.
All right, thanks Scott and Rodney. I'm gonna look to the back there where Trevor and Russell are, and do you have Adrian on the phone from Ministry of Energy and Mines? No, it's not working? Okay, well, we'll see if we can get him for a little bit later. Next on the list is BC Hydro. We've got Ed Schuster.
Well, I guess you guys know you don't have power, obviously. Yeah, we had crews working in there till 8:30 Saturday night, and we were ordered off the slide area. I had made a decision to cut the transmission line down, the 138 line feeding up the hill that feeds our substation, for safety reasons. We were literally trying to get the power back on to the very last minute, and we were ordered off. Where are we going to get the power back on soon? I can't honestly say. I know it's not going to come from that same area where we had it coming down the hill. I've brought the design staff, local design staff, and working with a regional engineer out of Vancouver, and tried to make a couple plans. I can't tell you what those plans are because I got to get the okay from senior management, which I do have a meeting with tomorrow. But we are working hard on it. I wish I could say, yeah, I'll have your power on tomorrow, because that's what we normally do, but we struggle with it. We can't get manpower in there. We can't get our equipment in there. So hopefully we do figure out a solution sooner than later. Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks Ed. So next on the list we've got Staff Sergeant Steve Perrett from the RCMP, and he's just going to talk a little bit about RCMP's roles and the evacuation order and what they do in that case.
Thank you, Trish. Good day, folks. My name is Steve Perrett. I'm the Acting Detachment Commander here in Fort St. John. We've been involved from the outset when the slide first came down the hill. Basically, our role is public safety in this whole incident or series of incidents. We take our direction from the PRRD, and so when we get to the point where there's an evacuation order, the RCMP is tasked with executing that order and ensuring that we assist in whatever way we need to do in order to facilitate that happening. I'd like to comment that with yesterday's evacuation, the feedback I got from the officers involved in that, there's a great deal of cooperation from the residents of Old Fort. We appreciate that. It makes things go much smoother and easier when we've got people cooperating. Just to explain how the evacuation order process goes, when the order is administered, we're tasked with ensuring that people get out. Now, the question we're always asked is, do we have to go? Well, for an able-bodied adult, they can make the decision where they go. The order is there, and it's there because there's a safety risk involved, and we want people to get out. But for various reasons, people decide that they're going to stay there. We're not going to force people to leave. The exception to that is when it comes to children or the infirm. children and adults that aren't able to take care of themselves, and they may not be able to decide whether it's best for them to leave or not. At that point, we will take action to ensure that those people are brought to safety. When it comes to children, you know, if their parents are choosing to stay in place, you know, we have to look out for the children's best interests as well. So at that point, we would engage the Ministry of Children and Families, and we would make a decision then on whether the children need to leave. Again, you know, just to underscore, you know, we had a great deal of cooperation from the residents yesterday. I know in the past, you know, when we're dealing with the wildfires, we didn't necessarily have the same level of cooperation. But when it makes things go much smoother, it's easier on everybody involved. You know, typically, you know, our resources, our primary assistance is from the North Peace Search and Rescue Team, and they came out and assisted as well in order to be able to hit, you know, a large area as quickly as possible and get the message out there. The other question we're also often asked is when it comes to security of people's property. You know, I know in our experience with the wildfires, you know, we were able to set up checkpoints and restrict access in and out of those in order to minimize the chance that people can enter those areas and break into houses, etc. With Old Fort, it's a little more challenging. You know, we don't have ready access to watercraft to be able to come in from the Peace River side. With that, I mean, you know, I believe that there is limited access to the river, so our primary concern is controlling egress from the top of the hill. So in conversation with the PRRD, I know that they've set up security that's going to be monitoring those checkpoints, and the police involvement will depend largely on the reaction from people trying to get through on those egress points. You know, if there is issues, you know, the security will turn people away. If there's issues with that, they will call the police and we'll respond and deal with that accordingly. I guess we'll have a question period at the end. I expect there'll probably be lots of questions to the police on this issue, but just to share with you what our role is as far as executing the evacuation order. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Steve. So I think we have Adrian Pooley from the Ministry of Energy and Mines, and he's ready to be kind of patched through to just give a verbal.
Yeah, hi there. Can you guys hear me? Hi, everyone. Adrian Cooley here with the Ministry of Energy and Mines. I'm a health and safety inspector and a professional mine engineer. Just a little background. So we were first informed by the mine manager for the gravel pit on Sunday morning that they had excuse me, that they had experienced a failure overnight. Basically, it was a scarp type failure where the outer edge of their pit just dropped down about 8 or 10 meters. We were up on site on Tuesday, myself and geotechnical engineer Jennifer Brash, and we had an inspection report issued by Thursday with a series of orders for how we would like them to proceed. We'd given them a stop work order as soon as we were informed of the issue. The mine has only been authorized to remove stockpile gravel. The course of action that was agreed upon by EMPR, Geotech, and MOTI is a means to relieve weight off the top of the slope. Work was carried out under the direction of a professional geotech engineer obtained by the company and with approval from EMPR Geotech. The surveyor has been in place on site, taking detailed readings since Friday. They have about 65 points. They're using LiDAR data, and we've really seen a maximum of about 2 centimeters worth of movement since that time total. So really no movement compared to the 5 to 10 meters that we're seeing down below. There's an estimated 40 to 50,000 cubic meters of material that we want to remove. Any further work will require further review and authorization by EMPR Geotech. So the gravel pit is expected to complete an investigation on the cause, and that investigation will be under the guidance of EMPR Geotechnical. The company in question, it was properly permitted to do this work. There's been a few questions around the platform being built up. After visiting the site, I don't think that was the case. They might have just put a layer of material down just so they had a solid footing, but there was nothing to indicate that it actually had built that platform out any further. The nature of the slide and the fact that most of the activity is carrying on down slope kind of leads us to believe that the piled material had minimal impact, but it could have some impact, and that's why we're getting them to move it out of there. It's more of a precaution than of a an indication that there's a surefire cause because of this material being piled up there. So there were some questions previously. There'd been a failure occur in the northeast part of the pit, and I believe that went back to about 20 or 30 years when gravel was actually dug out. The property up above had experienced failures. So we had given them orders in their permit to make sure that they did dig up in that area. They had an offset from that area, and they were actually going to put their waste material along the toe of the slope as kind of a buttress to prevent further sliding. We didn't have any indication that there were any issues on the south side of the pit where the failure had occurred previously. So this was new information to EMPR. That's probably about all I have. If there's any questions.
Sorry, I don't think he can take, it's not going to feed back in. So I think maybe what we can do is go through everybody else's. And if you've got some questions for Adrian who's on the phone, we'll mark those down when we go into the question period. We'll have to text them to him so then he can phone back and address them. But then we'll start answering other questions if that's okay. Okay? Yeah. So hold them, we'll get them, and then we'll ask him to answer them. So next we've got Tony Fiala from Emergency Management BC.
Thanks, everyone. So Emergency Management BC, our primary role through these emergency events and stuff is a coordinating, supporting role. So by coordinating, I mean we try to get all the agencies together so that information is shared and plans are kind of shared. So when things come to light, those information can be given out to folks, and then some mitigation works, whatever needs to get people back home. On the supporting role, we support the regional district, and that can be anywhere from expense authorizations to resource requests, and then following that cycle, you know, what does it take to get back into your homes and things like that. So the recovery kind of side. So that's our main role. We were fairly involved pretty much right off the get-go by helping coordinating calls on a daily basis and providing that communication between the agencies so that a plan is worked towards trying to mitigate the event that's happening. I know it's been a tough go, and hopefully as this progresses, you know, you'll start getting some answers on how to move forward, or get answers on where things are, so that, you know, we can start moving forward to understanding the slide and, you know, kind of what your length of time is away from your homes. Also, what we will be talking about too is, you know, you've got pets, things like that. Those things will be worked out through a plan, so we can maintain some kind of access and be able to get you the things you need from your homes and things like that. So, I guess questions are after. Okay, thanks.
All right, so like Robin and Kyla from City of Fort St. John, who've been managing the reception center, to come up and give you some news about ESS.
Good morning. Like Trish said, Kyla Bride and Robin Langell from the City of Fort St. John Emergency Support Services. We were asked by the PRRD to open up a reception center on September 30th at the Pomeroy Sports Center for the initial people that were coming out of the Old Fort Loop. Monday and Tuesday, we opened it up, the reception center at the Pomeroy Sports Center, for more people coming out. On Thursday, October 4th, we had an extension until October 9th, which is Tuesday, and I think pretty well everybody that's come out has lodging that we supplied or that EMBC is supplying, and food for the 9th. The plans going forward are there's an extension for 7 days, which will take us to the 16th. And it will just be for all the people that had it on the 4th. Right after this meeting's over, Kyle and I will be going and calling the hotels that people are staying in to make sure that they have rooms for everybody till the 16th, doing all the paperwork, bringing the paperwork in the morning of the 9th to the hotels to save you the trip, to sort of make it a little more convenient in this troubled time you guys are having. The food, the reception center will be open from 10 to 12 and from 5 to 7, and we'll have a number. So if everybody wants to take this number down, if anything happens with the hotel or the food, or you're having problems or whatever, I think we're going to use the PRRD call number. So that is 250-784-3200. Tell them what your problem is and that you want to talk to somebody at the Fort St. John Reception Center, the ESS Reception Center. They'll get the message to us and we'll call you back right away. So once again, 250-784-3200. And everybody that's currently registered to be in a hotel, or if you're staying with family or friends and you're getting groceries, we'll be renewing all that on Tuesday. Do you have anything to add?
I don't.
Okay. Sure. So the reception center on Tuesday, October 9th, at the Pomeroy Sports Center in the West Meeting Room, so the same room that you've come to before, 10 a.m. to noon, and 5 p.m. till 7 p.m. And we will be taking all the registrations to the hotels directly. And if you are at the hotel, we will do your food vouchers right there with you while you're there. Like I went to Super 8 last Tuesday, and there was only 2 people that were at the hotel. Everybody else was working, but we did their food vouchers right there. So, and then if something happens, the hotels don't have a room, we'll find you another room. Hopefully, we'll be able to keep you in the same room. You won't have to move and stuff like that. And then after 7 days, depending on how this is progressing, there'll just be extension, extension, extension. So that's how it works. Okay. You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Robin and Kyla. So now it's the Peace River Regional District's turn, so I'm going to give you some updates on things that we're working on. And just to reiterate what our role is in an emergency, every day there's emergencies, but generally police, fire, ambulance, they respond to fire or a vehicle accident, that sort of thing. We don't get involved at that kind of level, but when we have something like a landslide, we have a major wildfire, flooding, that's where we activate our emergency operations center. So our requirements actually under law, under the Emergency Program Act and the Local Government Emergency Management Regulation is that we are to identify procedures to deploy personnel, equipment, and facilities in an emergency, notify residents of an emergency. In this case, we've been using social media, our website, but most importantly, we've been utilizing the resources from RCMP and Search and Rescue to get out those notices that are very important right away, like evacuation alerts and orders. We work with other agencies and experts to determine if an area is safe or an evacuation is required. We coordinate with the help of ESS, so in this case with the City of Fort St. John, their staff and their volunteers, and probably some from Taylor as well. Food and shelter, clothing, and we've been coordinating transportation and medical services, and working with other agencies to establish priorities to restore essential services. So we've been on the phone a lot with Ed over this week. We've got a new relationship with Ed and with TELUS, and we've been trying to work with them to make sure they're safe as they've been trying to do their work up until just recently. We are working on an entry permit process, so we do have blank entry permits here that people can fill out. And the idea of that is to let you go back in, because I know some folks left yesterday thinking they were going to go out on the ferry in the morning and come back later, and they were going to go have turkey supper with their families, and now their pets or other medications, things like that might be left in there. So we know there's a number of people who need to get back very quickly, and we are looking at long-term plans. So I know a lot of people don't have vehicles out. What can we do about winterizing homes, getting your large items out, all those things. And so work actually started on that yesterday. So for those people who know that they need to get back right away, we would ask you to fill out an entry permit today. We're going to scan it, send it down to our EOC, and then they'll start triaging those to figure out who's getting in when. And we're going to do it on a set schedule, and we're going to do it in coordination with the RCMP. We want to make sure we don't send a whole bunch of people back on a boat and there's no room for you to bring things out that you need. So there's still a few folks that we haven't heard from, and in order to do some of this long-term planning, we still need to reach them. So if you haven't talked to someone from the Peace River Regional District, and this is not the RCMP or Search and Rescue, but the Peace River Regional District since, I'm going to say about Thursday or Friday, where we were asking you questions about what's your water source, what's your sewer, what do you do with your garbage, do your kids go to school in town, those sorts of questions. We still really need to hear from you, because again, we're trying to do some long-term planning to help everyone that's down there or has been evacuated from there. As always, we ask that you keep an eye on the Peace River Regional District website, our Facebook, the Old Fort Facebook. Thank you for allowing our information officers to post information there. I hope that's helping to get the information out. You can always call us 24/7 too. So if there's something that is a real concern to you, and if it's whether it's ESS or it's something else, you can call us 24/7 at 250-784-3200. And I think I'll pass it back over to Sean.
Thank you very much, everybody. We just wanted to say thanks to all of you for coming today and for pulling together and working with the Peace River Regional District during this event. We'd like to thank Gordon Calley for providing eyes on the ground information to the PRRD. Thanks to Fort St. John ESS, Search and Rescue, RCMP, BC Hydro and TELUS, and all provincial agencies for their support and coordination. Peace River Hydro Partners and BC Hydro for allowing us to use their dock to assist in the evacuation. We'd also like to thank Wilderness Adventures and Peace Country Transit for the boat and bus transportation. R&R Rentals for trying to establish a water line, and Rhonda Mellifont for providing our geotechnical information today. So thank you very much, and we're going to open it up for questions.
So I've got a few questions that were emailed in. Perhaps we can do that, and then Fran will be walking around with that. And is Kristen going to mark down the questions that we need to get back to Adrian with Ministry of Mines? Okay, and Kristen will do that. So, so we have one question that was emailed in, and this is for Ministry of Transportation. What pre-planning is being done for the removal of debris once it's safe to do so? And how long will it take to remove the debris?
So the question of debris, I would say, is probably too early at this stage. We don't even really know because it's still in motion. There's still more debris to come in. We certainly have game plans in place once the slide has slowed down enough in terms of pioneering a road, creating some space for debris to go into. So at this stage, I don't have a defined answer for that outside of we've got crews and equipment on standby.
The second question that was emailed in is the piece lookout in danger of sliding, and when will it be open to the public? And I think Rhonda's going to come answer that.
So when we went out and did the helicopter survey this morning, we did notice some cracking below the lookout. That won't be opened anytime soon. It is at risk. I couldn't tell you the likelihood at this point. We don't have enough information. But just the fact that that west slide is below there, I wouldn't foresee it being open anytime soon.
Third question that was emailed in. Why can't Old Fort use the sewer run generating station, the 50 kilowatt generator? And I think Ed's going to come answer that.
Yeah, actually, we looked at that option. It won't tie into our system, and it's illegal to tie in to that system. That's basically, I don't even know if it will work, to be honest with you, because I don't think they've ever tried it, but we cannot tie into our system. It would do more damage to your homes than would help. You'd be burning everything else. So, sorry, I wish, I mean, it'd be a great option, but it just can't happen.
So the next question that was emailed in, this will be for Adrian. So I'll tell you what the question is. We'll just hold it, and then we'll get Adrian back on to answer all the other questions at the same time with the Ministry of Energy and Mines. What was the purpose of stockpiled gravel? There was a massive amount being stockpiled at the gravel pit. So we'll hold that one, and then we'll get Adrian back on the line for other questions. And maybe at this time, maybe I could ask if people have other questions for the Ministry of Energy and Mines, so we can get those all in the queue and we can bring him back to answer them all at once. Pardon me? So the question, just to make sure I heard it clearly, why were they given a permit to stockpile gravel? Pardon me? And why did they start the gravel pit again? Okay. Any other questions for Ministry of Energy and Mines that we'd like him to come back and answer? So the question is, what are they doing with their water in the crushing process? And so where are they discharging, or how are they discharging the water? Okay. Yes? So is it the same company doing the investigations on the gravel pit as who's giving the approvals? Is that the question? Yeah. Okay. Previously, okay.
My understanding is geotech engineers from the mines division who did the study for the pit, that the government themselves, geotech engineers, did the study for this, who gives a permit for it. If I understood what Adrian said there, the same ministry is the one that's going to monitor the same investigation. So it sounds to me like we had the same division themselves who gave the permit in the first place.
So to summarize that, if I can, into a question, is it the same ministry that is monitoring the pit as that did the geotech to allow the activity to happen?
Because I was told from them that our government engineers did the permit, they did the work for this company to do that. And now it sounds, if I heard it right, they're the ones that are going to be monitoring, they're going to do the investigation. So can we have, the question is, can we have an independent person doing the, company doing the investigation, not the ministry?
So the question then, can we have an independent inquiry of the actions that are taking place there? Okay, and review. Okay. Is there anything else for the Ministry of Energy and Mines?
I got a question for the minister. There was a report that there was slippage on that pit in July, more than once, and it was covered up. So is the ministry aware of that? And what was the nature of the cover-up? So that gravel pit started sliding in July. It was reported.
Okay. Kristen, did you get that question at the back? Good to go. Okay, we'll add that to the list. Anything else for Ministry of Energy and Mines?
Is it an inspection stage or is it into the investigation stage in the situation?
Okay.
I heard once the statement, it was minimal, what they've done is minimal in the situation. So I'm wondering, is it an investigation or is it an inspection?
Okay. So the question is, are they at an investigation stage with that, or are they at an inspection stage? I think there was a question at the back. No?
Yeah. Like, I'm wondering why they're even still in there. Like, he mentioned on the phone that they don't feel those piles are causing any more stress. But how do we know that them working in the vibration is not causing that slide to continue to slide?
Okay. So Kristen, did you get the first question? Sir, can you just repeat your question? And then we'll go to the second one there.
I was just wondering. Oh, I can't remember. What's that? I can't even remember. Oh, yeah. I was wondering. Yeah, I was wondering why they're still there. Like, he had stated when he was on the phone that they didn't feel those piles were causing any further stress, but they were going to remove them just to be sure. So I don't know how they can assure us that they're not causing that slide to keep moving right now. The vibration alone could cause it to be moving. It doesn't have to be moving where they're working for it to be causing it to move deeper down and lower down.
Okay, so I think, Kristen, you got that now? And then a question that I think it's a combination, Ministry of Energy and Mines and for the regional district. Why is it safe for them to do that work, and why is it not safe for people? Maybe that's...
Yeah, so why is it safe for them to be up there and all their equipment right at the top of the slide, and it's not safe for us to be down at the bottom?
For hydro, for that matter, they got ordered out on an evacuation order. You can't name it because it's not safe to work, but the evacuation order got overrode for the gravel pit.
So, and maybe, Rhonda, do you want to come talk to that first, and then...
The area where BC Hydro was working to reestablish connections was on the western side of the west slide, so it's a completely different area. With respect to the pit itself, there was a safety assessment done for them. I'm not going to comment on that too much. That's for Adrian to talk about. But I do know that the geotechnical engineer that did that assessment, so there was a study done. I haven't done a thorough assessment of that area, so I'm not able to comment on that. I had some concerns, and I did express them to that company, and they have provided me with details that they are doing hourly survey monitoring of that location to make sure there's no changes to the cracks.
Do we have any more for Energy and Mines? Okay. I think we got one here, and then we'll come over here.
Is Site C in danger? And why does the evacuation order only go up to the edge of Site C?
Okay, so let's hold that one because we just want to see if we can get, because do you have a question for Ministry of Energy and Mines? Okay, so we'll hold that one and then we'll go right back to it so we can get one more question to Energy and Mines. Yes, ma'am?
What I'd like to know, I'd like to go back in time and have an analysis before this slide even happened from the Ministry of Mines perspective, the application from DSAN Holdings, they had to have applied for a permit in order to operate that gravel. And on that application would be the information that the mine inspector would use to analyze, okay, I'm going to give a permit to this operation, which they did. They also would be giving terms and conditions on that permit. I would like to know what terms and conditions they put on that permit and what professional expertise did they use besides the mine inspection analysis. Did they use a geotechnical expert? And I believe they did from a bit of research that I've done. So I'd like that to be transparent, open, where we don't have to do a freedom of information request to get that information. We need to know what happened in the past that brought us up to this moment today.
Okay, so you'd like to know the terms and conditions for under which that permit was issued?
Well, yes, and you have a mine inspector that is taking the information in and giving the permit. Somebody gave the permit to this DSAN Holdings in order to operate this, and what are the terms and conditions did they put down? They have to follow the Mine Act and the regulations, but there's special terms and conditions that they would have implemented on that permit.
Okay, we will add that one to the list for you. One more, but yes?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess we heard eyewitness accounts of two previous slides, the one that was mentioned in July and August. And I guess my question is, was that reported to Energy Mines? And if it was there a go work order essentially allowing them back to continue working in that pit? Because there was one in July that was dramatic. It was, eyewitness accounts was 1,000 yards by 400 yards in size. And why was it allowed to continue is my question. I'm sure it's a question for everybody here.
Okay. Kristen, did you get that one too? She's rapidly writing at the back. Yeah. Thank you, MP Zimmer. Anyone else for Energy and Mines before we open the floor? There's one at the back there.
I'm just curious about Site C. Now, we know there's a lot of vibration happening down there with equipment moving, blasting, pile driving. I think that should be shut down until this is all cleaned up. Evacuate.
So the question is, can Site C be shut down in the meantime until we have more information and to see if whether that's a contributing factor? And I'm not sure where that question goes, Tony, on Site C. Okay. So is there any more for Energy and Mines before we go back to the gentleman's question about why was Site C not evacuated and why was Old Fort? He's a mines inspector.
Oh, okay, the mines inspector.
Yes.
He made the comment on the phone that, and I think somebody mentioned it here, that it's minimal, he believes it's minimal cause. I'd like to know, being that they've had their analyses done and they're doing it, how did he arrive at that analysis that it's minimal cause? And what exactly does that mean?
So the question is for the Energy and Mines, how did he arrive at the conclusion that it was a minimal cause or a contributing factor? Yes? Okay. Anything else from Energy? Kristen is rapidly writing at the back, and then she's going to email that to him, and then we'll get him back on the phone to answer those questions.
Let's not kid ourselves. The only reason they're in there is because it's money. There's millions of dollars that were spent in crushing material. If it was anything else, they would not be allowed in there.
Where's that gravel being hauled to?
That's a good... Kristen, another question. Whose gravel is it and where is it being hauled to?
Also, if they don't think it was the gravel pit's fault, then why have they, we have heard that they've already filed a claim.
Kristen, did you get that one too?
An insurance claim.
We've already heard that they have filed an insurance claim.
Who's there?
The gravel pit.
Company?
The company?
Yeah, gravel pit.
The gravel pit, the
So the
company.
question is-
Gravel pit company.
Has the gravel pit company filed an insurance claim? I'm not sure if they can answer that, but perhaps he can.
I think they may be concerned about liability.
All right, so let's go back to the question you had earlier about why was Old Fort evacuated and not Site C, and I'll hand that over to Rhonda because again, it's based on her professional expertise about where the ground is moving to.
So from what we've seen so far, both with the LiDAR and with the visual observations via helicopter, as well as our ground truthing, the area affected does not extend past the area that we've set for the evacuation order. The area between there and Site C has been traversed, and we are not noticing any cracking along that area. So at the moment, it's not considered to be at risk.
All right, so I guess, other questions? I'm sure there's more. Have one over here, and then we'll go to the back.
Hi, my name's Kelly Zebart. I live 7583 Old Fort Road. I've kind of got two questions, but with the goal being in mind that the Old Fort Loop people want to go back to their residence. Now, with that being said, like we build 25 kV cable all the time. Ed, how far are we away from doing a temporary connection coming down your water right away and tying on to the distribution? In Ministry of Transportation, how far away are we from putting in 2 bridges and making a road on the island? You'd be probably a week away from getting access.
Yeah, Kelly, I can, like tomorrow, like I say, I'm in a meeting right at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I have that. That's a good point. I got I got a plan kind of thing, but I got to make sure it's going to work, right? Like I could build a space shuttle if I wanted to, but I can't. So tomorrow morning that's going to be brought up. There's stuff called submarine cable, and whether they'll let me, we'll have to see though. I don't want to make any promises because I honestly, yeah, I know what could happen to me if I make a promise. So I'm just going to leave it that way.
Yeah, and then just to answer the second question in terms of the bridge, the south option is one of our options where there's the island out into the peace. So the idea would be actually to move south across the island and then back over. So we actually had our field services crew and one of our project managers actually tour the site on the weekend, and we're just in the process of looking for procurement for all the different options, like culverts, bridges, that sort of thing. So we're actively looking at it. Of course, every option's got its challenges, so we're just trying to work that out, but do be confident that we are looking at it.
Well, the other access was going through the Reed, but that's not existent anymore, just with all the new people over there.
Yeah, well, so to be completely honest with you, when we came into the room this morning, that was our number one option. And then we found out from Rhonda, like everyone else, that probably wasn't. It was the shortest option. It was the one that we could get in as quickly as we could. But now that we're getting, and this is how dynamic this situation is we're literally exploring different options and finding other paths. We're even looking at other ways that we can get walking paths in, or there are other ways that we can get people in. So yeah, it's all those options are being considered.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to have the less hills involved. You're not going to have to climb over this old slide and come down. Like, let it do its business. Go up to the island, come around.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and it's one of the options we're exploring. The challenge, obviously, is we're in October right now, and the river's fairly low. Of course, that river may not be that way come spring, so we're trying to find an option that's going to get people in and out of the community as quickly as possible, but then also hopefully having a long-term option. So, as I said before, our goal is to try to get the road back to where it is, depending on the slide. And if that's not an option, then we're looking for this to be a more permanent option in the long run. But we're still, in terms of on the front end of this, of exploring all the options, and we're looking at it, northwest, east, and south right now, and that is one of the more viable options that we're looking at.
When would you be making a decision?
Right, it's in limbo right now. We're still waiting to see what's happening with the slide. If the slide continues to move the way it is, I think we'd be looking to make a decision quick. It's hard for me to give you a distinct answer right now, other than our priority is to get a road into the community as quickly as we can.
Thanks, Scott. I think there's a question at the back.
Just wondering, I guess, on the timeline. So there's options A, B, C, and D. Is it a week? Is it a month for us to when we can get access? And the second part, I guess, in the province, is there any areas where we're also seeing slides at that rate of 4 meters a day? And what's the cutoff of when you guys can actually move equipment in there? Is it one? When can you actually move equipment in there?
So maybe I'll ask Scott to just talk about the road access, but maybe go back to Rhonda about the ground movement and what needs to be seen and further studies need to be done before anyone can really start working. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so in terms of decision, like I say, the front end of this meeting was news to us as well in terms of how dynamic the situation is. So the more information we have, the quicker we're going to be able to make a decision. I'd like to make it as quick as we possibly can, but it's hard for me to say 3 days a week or a month. I don't think it'll be a month. I think we'll be actioning something before then.
With respect to at what point they could get equipment in, it's all going to depend on whether this landslide slows down or not, and preferably comes to a complete stop. We have no guarantee of when that would happen. If it does significantly slow down, we can look at some re-entry options, but at this point in time, it's moving too quickly for us to get anybody in there.
What type of movement until you get equipment in?
I don't have a specific threshold for that. It basically comes down to monitoring and the confidence in the stability of that slide and whether it's going to keep moving. Basically, if there's life at risk, we can't allow people to go back in there.
I think you can rule out the rest of this year till the springtime, till next summertime for equipment.
Based on what we're seeing right now, that's a distinct possibility.
I guarantee it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I have a Bachelor of Science in Earth and Atmospheric Sciences from the U of A, with a focus on towards engineering geology throughout my career. I've been in the industry for 15 years. I work with a team of geotechnical engineers and engineering geologists that have up to 30 years experience. West-Track Geotechnical specifically specializes in landslide assessments, geohazard assessments, and risk analysis. So my background around here, actually, I've worked up here off and on for 15 years, so I'm very familiar with the soil conditions up here. I have dealt with multiple slope stability projects along the Peace River, specifically on the North Bank. Anything from subdivision approvals to investigations of previous landslides. Absolutely. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. We've dealt with John Clay quite a bit. If you would like to get a second opinion, I welcome it. I'm very confident in what we've observed so far and the recommendations we've provided. And if you'd like to bring somebody in, it's my understanding that the regional district has retained us. So if there is a second opinion wanted, that would be funded from elsewhere, possibly from the homeowners.
Yeah, did you suggest that about a second opinion too, Brad?
It's always been an option. Yeah.
Well, yeah, third and fourth, but I just wondered if you suggested it to them or not.
Not directly. We have a collaboration between MOTI and Ministry of Mines and the other geotechnical firm that worked on the gravel pit, as well as ourselves. So we have quite a few people looking at it already.
For those people who don't know who John Clay is, he's an expert in landslides. He teaches in Vancouver. He's been published over 200 times. This man has a research department and people that work on landslides. This is his specialty. And I don't know, he's probably one of the most qualified people possibly in the world on landslides.
And he's in Vancouver.
And he's in Vancouver. He's not very far away. He's not overseas somewhere. He's right in Vancouver. And I would like to recommend to regional district, perhaps we get somebody, and these guys are pretty open options, I tell you. They're interested. This type of thing is interesting. he might have an idea about how much volume we're looking at. Because have you done a study about how far it will slide? If it did slide, that new portion did slide, how far is that going to go? Why are we in danger at the old fort? Are we in danger because that one's sliding? And maybe somebody, John Craig and his team, could offer some really, really good advice.
Absolutely. That is part of the detailed study that we were talking about doing after. Right now, visual observations and LiDAR and ground truthing are what we have available to us via safety or for safety reasons. We've done volume estimates. You can try to predict some of the landslide runout analysis, but it's not a guarantee. It's still unpredictable. And this landslide continues to evolve and activates other areas. So it's going to be an ongoing process, whether it's us working on it or it's John Clegg working on it or.
Can we do such thing as, we understand that some of this pushing more west than east. Is there ways, and we all know there's this big crack up there and you say it's going to slope the other direction. Is there a way to blast that or anything else? I'm sure we have blasting experts at BC Hydro. Is there a way to blast the waves and force that to go to the west so that it takes that pressure off going to the east and force it to go west and put that pressure on that direction? Is that an option?
That would require a detailed study to determine what the effects would be and to predict where that's actually going to go.
Okay.
So.
And your office can do that type of detailed study? Who does that type of thing?
In collaboration with others, we can work on a team to do something like that.
The volume estimate that you've done, if that lets loose, will it go to the houses at the old fort? Have you determined that? We're trying to figure out why this order was made, right? Because it affects a lot of people here. Their whole financial future, their livelihoods, everything that is made on the decision bang, and that came from your recommendation, from what I understand.
That's correct.
So there's a lot of people here that got all their life tied up in what's down there, okay? And we see a possibly double standard that's taking place. We have, one house was evacuated first, and it was done, there's movements, cracks, and everything else. The rest of us have suffered no movement at all that we know of in our houses, and all of a sudden, one day the order's made. Was there an opportunity having 2 or 3 days saying, if this progresses like this, we're going to make an order in 3 or 4 days that people will have to evacuate your houses at the old fort. That wasn't done. It was boom, it's done right now. And we as residents, we don't see that danger. We see the size of the hill, but we don't see any of that. So what studies have been done on that to make that decision recommendation and that situation?
So I would just ask people to go look at, we've got a timeline over to the side later, but we have been progressively putting more and more properties on evacuation alert and order as the situation changed. Rhonda got here on Friday night. The situation between Tuesday and Friday changed dramatically. And so as it kept changing, we kept upgrading and looking at more properties that were at risk. So. We're on evacuation order. Will it reach us?
That's not something I can guarantee. So what I can tell you is that there's a risk of it. I can't tell you the likelihood, but I can tell you it's a possibility. And based on that, there's life at risk, and therefore I provided the recommendation that, yeah.
Who decided on the boundaries of that map, of the evacuation order? Who made that map, and who decided on the boundaries of it?
So it was a decision between the EOC and Rhonda and her professional expertise. And please understand too, the information that she's getting and sharing is also consistent with what we've been getting from Ministry of Transportation and Energy and Mines. So like she said, there are a number of professionals that are working on this, and all the information is consistent at this point.
Can it be changed? Can the boundaries of that map be changed? Can the boundaries of the map be changed? Okay. In other words, if it affects hydro coming into an area, if I understand that map, looking closely at it, what we call the century, okay, it looks like it's coming right down the century, which is where it's at. That's uphill. Is that an affected area, and why is it? Because it provides access in and out for those residents that have quads and side-by-sides and that type of thing.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the area that you're talking about, like with that. Can you point it out on the map for me? And then perhaps I can answer your question. Okay, so you're talking where the, like below the lagoons?
Yeah, the west, yeah, the east boundary line of the, on the map, okay?
Yeah. Okay, so
It looks like
Just-
an
just down there.
arbitrary square drawn on the sand. That,
that's the property lines. Yeah.
who owns the property line of the section up here?
So those are the property boundaries, or the legal lot lines.
Property boundaries here, but I'm not quite sure where the hill comes into place here. But, which goes up the hill, but is that slope that comes down where the people ride their quads, you know, is that in danger? And if it is, why?
So there's a relic landslide there that is begun to show deformation. It hasn't shown failure yet, and it might not, but at this point it's showing deformation, which is a sign that it could. So that's why that area has been put on evacuation order. I can't comment on the rest of the valley at this point. I've been asked to assess this area with respect to public safety.
Well, I'd like to ask a question, or just elaborate on my neighbor.
Go ahead.
I think it warrants a team of geologists, not just one. We should have a consensus. I think there's more than one, factor to take into account. It could be a little bit too much to be putting on the shoulders of one person. So, that's my opinion. I don't think it's very far off what other people think. And a question I have is, what's the chance of a major fast moving slide? This slide is a snail moves faster than this slide is. We can see it coming, and it's far away. We can see it, and we can see the hill. It's coming, but very slow.
Okay, all landslides are different. They're entirely different beasts. Each one requires its own study. Each one moves at a different pace, and they're all unpredictable. So you can monitor, and you can track it, and you can try to predict what it's going to do, but there's no guarantees. So it might be moving at a specific pace right now, but there's nothing to say that there isn't an additional failure that's going to speed it up, or if the friction with the ground underneath is going to actually slow it down and stop it. So based on that portion of it, yeah, it's slow compared to some, but it's fast compared to others. It's still unpredictable.
Can you track it over the winter? Is it going to be safe? If there is a road going in, is it going to be safe in the springtime when snowpack melts? That landslide might come over?
It becomes more difficult to track over the winter based on visibility of the ground surface.
Is it going to be safe for us to go back if we live right under the new slide over the springtime? Is there a chance of the whole hill?
I don't have enough information at this point to tell you.
Yes or no? So no.
Yes or no? I would
No.
say that right now, all I can tell you is it's going to be a while before we can get people back in there. So.
Will your study be able to tell us if we're at greater risk in the future than we have been in the past?
That would be one of the things that we would be looking at with the study.
We need to have you on the mic because we're having a live feed so other people can hear.
In all honesty, there's no road coming through the Old Fort Road. I mean, I agree with that man there. Don't even look there anymore because you guys will never give the okay, because I wouldn't give the okay. So go elsewhere. That's not really a question.
Thank you.
Hello? Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any chance of getting short-term chopper service in rather than go in by boat for the elderly, or everybody actually.
So if, like I said, we've brought some blank entry permits to fill out, and if you've got some mobility needs, then please make sure you mark those on those, and then we can look at that if that's needed.
If I could just go back, I realized I didn't address the other portion of your question there, sir. The team of engineers and geologists. I am working with a team of engineers and geologists within my company on this. So there is senior technical review and internal quality assurance done. So if you're referring to a team of different companies, there have already been several geotechnical companies retained to look at various aspects of this slide. Some for road access, some for public safety, some for the safety access to the gravel pit. So there is a team working on it. Is that kind of what you were getting at, or are you looking for something different?
Yeah, we can understand.
We don't see, I can't see, and some of my neighbors can't see or feel the danger, and we live there. We know the area. We've scoured those hills. We have a pretty good feel for the ground that we're sitting on, and I think most of the old fort is sitting on a delta that came out of that ravine over years and years and years. It's fanned out, and the old fort community sits on that delta. So, I think that to me seems like a fairly, a fairly stable piece of land.
I don't know how to summarize that. Okay.
Okay, so part of the detailed study would include background searches on things exactly like that to determine that. My role here was to assess the risk to public safety, and that's what it's limited to at this point in time. And so based on what I've seen out there, there is a risk. I can't say that everyone would be safe staying in there, and that's what the decision was based on.
And I think it's important to note that when we have individuals like Rhonda or with the other ministries, and they're all getting the same information, they're telling us all the same things, that's when we advise to our board, what we think is in the best interest of public safety, and I know that's always constantly on their minds as well. Does somebody have another?
Yeah. Right
MP
here.
Zimmer? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I see three different stages of problems here. We have short-term needs, we have medium-term needs, and we have long-term needs. The question I have right now is short-term needs for residents that live there, that have houses that can freeze up, that have animals that might be starving as we sit here. What are the short-term answers? And EMS, I haven't heard much from you. And I guess I'm curious about, when I hear people say we have a plan and don't tell what the plan is, I get concerned.
We are planning. I can't tell you.
And I'm not blaming. And believe me, I know we're all trying here, and I know Brad's done a great job over the weekend, and you guys as well, but we need to address the concerns out there, like how we have people in the room that have commanders, big six-wheel flatbed trucks that are ready to go in there and get things out if given the nod. Are they going to be given the nod? And this is to get things out immediately. I guess the medium term is the bridge, and we talked to Scott about the bridge situation and getting access. When is that going to happen? And we've heard that it's being planned, but again, we don't have timelines. Is this going to be decided in 2 days, or is it going to be decided in 2 months? And then the long term is access back to their houses. So I think all these folks have ever wanted is information. We were down there, Dan Davies and myself, and Brad were down actually at the old fort on Saturday. And the biggest question we had is we don't know what's going on. And it's one thing to have a Facebook page, but it's also another thing to have, you need to tell people what's going to go on with stages. And when they can have, especially now that they've been given the order, when can they go in and winterize their homes, take the water out of the pipes, those kinds of things. And they need answers.
We understand that. And so just like Scott mentioned with the Ministry of Transportation, every time you start making a plan, something changes. So then you're moving to Plan B, Plan C, Plan D, and we've been doing that all week. So we are very aware of that, and the first step is for people to fill out those entry permits, let us know what their needs are, what are the things that short-term they need out, and long-term what they need to do. And then we can finish making those plans. I can tell you there's a whole team of people at the Emergency Operations Center right now looking at, well, not even looking, we have already buses and boats on standby, but we have to be able to triage that and do it in an organized fashion.
I guess I just want to make a comment that I've hiked those hills for years and years, and there's always been natural sliding on those hills, and there's been a crack at the top of that hill for the last 29 years I've lived there. So when you're basing your studies on some of those cracks and stress spots you've seen, they are actually been there for the last 29 years. And if you go around this Peace region, every bloody hill up and down has a stress crack and land falling. So to claim that whole area, it's going to crash on our heads. I don't believe that for 1 second.
At no point have I said that area is going to crash on anyone's heads. What I have identified is that there is existing failures here that are moving. There is evidence of instability in other areas surrounding the slides. Those could be triggered by different contributing factors. Something contributed to setting off this landslide. Okay. So, you know, you can have a tension crack that sits there for 29 years, and you can add water to it, and there's a dozen different things that could help contribute to it. So, but that 29-year tension crack that's been sitting there is still susceptible.
I'd like to talk about the road going in. I remember a long time ago, the railroad bridge went down. It took no time to build a road across the bridge, the Pine. What's the holdup now? It's way shorter.
I got something to say. In 1942, the Alaska Highway was built in 9 months, 1,500 miles.
No time across the Pine, there was nobody in danger.
So right now, from the information I've had from here today, is that it's not safe in the community itself. What I can tell you is that we're working on plans, and I think Trish said it well in terms of we had a plan. The original plan was this one going immediately to the west, trying to get around the toe of the slope. Now we're looking at some other spots that are in it. So certainly, as soon as we have a plan, this involves other people's private land. It involves obviously environmental risks. We don't have 11,000 American service military men, but that. No, fair enough, fair enough. But be aware, we have our entire team that is working on this in terms of exploring opportunities. We had staff actually in the field this weekend looking at it, and so we're going to do our best to make the road not the limiting option. There's a multitude of issues to get into this community right now, and we're going to try to be, as I'm sure every agency is going to try to be, as not the limiting option, and so that we can get people back in their homes as quick as we can.
Rhonda, sorry to put you on the spot again. Over here. I'd like to ask you a bit more about the detailed report that you've mentioned, and I'd like to ask about the proportional cause. Will you proportional a cause to this landslide? In other words, we're shifting the idea towards the gravel pit, and will you actually say if that is a cause, proportionate it?
So for the detailed study, the first phase of that is to determine what's actually going on with the landslide. It includes monitoring, it includes an investigation. There is a component that will identify potential cause factors. It's difficult to say at this point whether we would be able to say 100% it was caused by this, because there's normally more than one factor involved. I haven't typically broken it down percentage-wise, but we can comment on which ones are more likely to have contributed.
I just had a quick question here. I've read online, and I was also told by Search and Rescue and the RCMP when we were evacuated that we had to leave our doors, shed, and windows unlocked. Is there patrol down below or people from the river there that can come up and have easy pickings at our house? I was just wondering if there's people watching out for that, or.
So we do have 3 security checkpoints on land, and then we also have security by boat as well at this time.
Okay, I have 2 questions. I guess they're for EMBC and the geotech. So if I understand correctly, EMBC had a geotech from the beginning of the week, and then they were supposed to leave on Thursday, Friday. PRRD hired their own. Is that information been passed along to you? And are all the agencies sharing their geotech, like their information?
Yes, so all agencies are sharing their information, and just to clarify, it was the Ministry of Transportation that was on initially.
Okay.
And then they're working in closely with Rhonda and with the Ministry of Energy and Mines.
Okay.
All agencies are working very closely to share that information.
Okay, and then for EMBC, my question is, if the situation is ongoing or until spring, which is what it's looking like, what is their long-term plan? Like, are we just staying in hotels week by week? Is it better to get apartments? What do you, like, I realize you can't say because you can't plan for 6 months if it'll be 2, but what are we looking at?
Yeah, like everyone said, we can't plan the long term, but we are working with the regional district on looking what that plan's going to look like. So if it is a full year, we'll work with the regional district to see what that plan and roll that plan out. I mean, that's, you got to look at that, right?
But you were just told by the professional sitting here that it's going to be many, many months. You were told that. And then you say you can't make a long-term plan. Well then, if we can make enough plan on her recommendation to evacuate the old fort, you must be able to make enough of a plan on her recommendation for how many months we're going to.
So our first priority is short-term planning, as MP Zimmer has mentioned, and making sure you can get in there to get the valuables you need, and then look at winterizing homes. As that short-term planning is going and as it's being implemented, then we will be making those long-term plans.
Okay, I got a question and an observation. Tony, over here. We've seen quite a lack of organization for the different services, of oversight, okay? Every service you know what, people are working hard. And we can't take that away from anybody. There's been a lot of people that are working hard to get stuff done, keep power on, try to get a road through. I don't want to take anything away from anybody. But your agency is the oversight. And you gave me the answer I've been looking for when you made your opening address.
Right.
Okay. You guys oversee and give coordination.
Correct.
And there hasn't been that. I've been close to Brad through this. He has been left on his own, and you guys need to step it up, because many things could have been done differently this week.
So
Okay?
I don't know if you know, but we do have coordination calls every day where we organize those to bring the agencies together. And well, we're working through with the regional
You know what we got? You know what we got? We got bottled water and a taxi.
Right.
That's what we got. And now we're out. And then we got we got an evacuation order. And I'm telling, and that's what we got. So now we're out, and we've been 8 days. We could have had our own water piped in a day. We had YRB was first and foremost. They said, we'll help you. And you know what? A couple phone calls to some local contractors here, and you will get, you will have all the services we need. Water would be pumped in. On day 8, yesterday, there's still no water. And we were told on Wednesday, water will be delivered on Thursday. Okay, and so we stood down. Okay, so that's the reality.
Right. So we are working with the regional district on that, and as you probably know, when the water system was being put in, the order came down, right? So we have to go to Plan B, Plan C.
So,
Why wasn't there a representative here on our Tuesday meeting? Why did it take 8 days for someone to come here from your ministry?
Well, there was a duty manager that was on, that was working with the regional district and the other agencies when that happened.
Has anybody considered a...
So I'm wondering, we've got Adrian Pooley from the Ministry of Energy and Mines on the phone. Yes, Russell, and maybe we could go to that, and he's got all the questions that you asked.
Has anybody considered a barge for things bigger than suitcases to move out on the river?
Yes, that's part of the medium-term planning. It's being worked on right now. So, Russell, do you have Adrian there?
Yeah, hi everyone. Hope you can hear me. I can hear all the questions as long as the microphone's being used. So if anything else does come up, please just make sure you're speaking to the microphone. I'll do my best to answer. But I've got a whole list here in front of me. So we'll start off with the first purpose of the stockpile graph. Typically, we permit a gravel or mine site once the commodity is taken off site. It's kind of out of our hands where it goes, but my understanding is that it was being used for some construction project up the Alaska Highway. I can't really comment any further than that. Why give them a permit and why did work start? So we permitted them to go in just to remove the stockpile material along the edge of the slope. This was in conjunction with EMPR Geotech, FBI Geotech, and the Geotech company retained. The thinking was that the best course of action would be to remove material and relieve any additional stress on the slope. It might help, it might not. We can't say for sure. Is it the same ministry that is doing the investigation that allowed the activity to happen? So yes. The activity was permitted by EMPR. We will be requiring an investigation. If the company has been ordered to retain a geotechnical engineer, which they've done, and one of their orders is that they will have to carry out the investigation at their expense, but we will be reviewing that and ensuring that it meets our standards. We also have a separate division within EMPR, an investigative unit consisting of former RCMP and conservation officers. We've been in communication with them and are giving them regular updates on what is happening. Can we have an independent inquiry of the actions taking place at the gravel pit? So the answer to that, that's a little outside my scope. My primary concern is health and safety of both the workers as well as the town people. As I already mentioned, we do have an independent investigation unit, and if they feel that an inquiry or further action is warranted, then they'll take steps. Is the ministry aware of the reported sliding in July? Was this covered up? So we were not aware of this. I would say if you have information on a slide, please share it with the emergency operation coordinator and they can pass that information on to me. That will go into our investigation. As far as anything being covered up, I can comment that the mine reported this failure as soon as they were aware that it was happening. It occurred over Saturday night. They reported it to us by Sunday morning. Is it in the inspection stage or the investigation stage? So we visited the site on Tuesday. We carried out an inspection and we wrote an order requiring the mine to complete an investigation with an independent geotechnical engineer, as I already mentioned, that will be reviewed by our geotechs as well. Why are they still in the gravel pit? So how do they know the vibrations are not causing the issues? So we are monitoring the pit for any movement, and so far we've seen over about a 4-day period now since Friday, we've seen a maximum of 2 centimeters worth of movement. If vibrations, any of the activity caused movement thresholds to be exceeded, they would be pulled out of there. They might not be allowed back in. But what we're seeing right now is that there's really no movement, very minimal, less than 2 centimeters. And that's why we're allowing the work to proceed. If that changes, if movement does start, they'll probably be pulled out. They may or may not be allowed to go back in. It'll depend on how conditions play out. Why is it safe for ministry to the gravel pit, but residents in BC Hydro are not? So once again, we're monitoring the area. We're not seeing the 5 to 10 meters worth of movement that we're seeing further down the slope that Rachel had mentioned there. Is Site C in danger? I can't comment on Site C, but every indication we've had from BC Hydro is that they don't see any problems. Beyond that, I can't comment. What are the terms and conditions under which the permit was issued? So we issued a safe work plan that was prepared by the geotechnical engineer that was retained by the company. That safe work plan was reviewed by myself as well as our geotech engineers out of Victoria, and we gave them a whole list of conditions that they had to follow. I believe that was shared on your Facebook page. The information and conditions in that plan should be available to you. Another question about Site C, can it be shut down? That's not for me to answer here. How did we arrive at the conclusion that the gravel pit was a minimal cause? So as Rachel mentioned, there could be a whole bunch of different reasons for this, and it's hard to put a percentage on what each one contributed to. But the fact that we're not seeing any movement beyond the initial block failure, I believe the gentleman from YRB shared a diagram of a typical slide like this. The fact that most of the movement is further down the slope, whereas up top where the gravel pit is, we've just seen that initial drop down. That indicates that the land is failing further below, and the ground where the gravel pit itself is still fairly solid. We haven't seen any cracking on the ground where the failure hasn't occurred. So every indication we have is that the ground is solid higher up, but it's just losing its support further down. Where is the gravel being hauled to, and whose is it? So I did mention already it's being hauled to a construction project up the Alaska Highway somewhere. It's really not up to us to determine where material is being used after it's hauled off site. The name of the company is DSAN Holdings. That's DEASAN Holdings. Their information is on our inspection report that it was also shared with the Emergency Operation Coordinator. Has the gravel pit company already filed an insurance claim? So that is not for us to comment on. That would be up to the gravel pit operator. It's probably smart of them to do so, though, to make sure that they're being covered. But that's not really up to us to comment on what their insurance is one way or another. We do retain funds for reclamation purposes. Until a cause is determined, is there a way to freeze operations, sales / funding of the gravel pits? So once the material is taken off the outer edge of the slope on the piles that have been clearly identified, there will be no more activity going on at the pit until their investigation is completed, until we've approved that investigation, and until we determine that it's safe to go back in there, which, given the conditions, it could be a long ways before we make that determination, or it might not come at all. So that's the list of questions I had. If anyone has anything else, please just speak into the mic, and I should be able to hear. Some of them I hope I answered as best I could, but if there's anything that I missed, by all means, please just go ahead and speak into a microphone.
Can you hear me? Yes? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Fran's got the mic. I think there's a few more questions for you, Adrian.
Sure.
I had asked what was done with the water from the crushing operation, where the water was discharged to.
Yeah. And sorry I missed that because I had written that down in my notebook, but it wasn't in the email. So they weren't using any water for crushing. Typically crushing, you might spray down for dust control, but it wouldn't be any serious consequence of water or serious amount of water, and you wouldn't usually see much other than just a thin layer being spread on the ground for dust. You might be thinking of a washing operation, but they weren't doing any washing on the site, so there was no water being discharged of any kind.
Yeah, I guess the question I had was you somewhat answered it, in that you weren't aware of any or previously reported slides in July and August. Is that correct?
That's correct. Today's meeting is the first I've heard about that. Mine hadn't reported anything. If it's further down the valley, off the property. It may or may not be something the mine was even aware of, and we hadn't heard anything at the ministry.
We have
Mines and Energy.
an eyewitness account from a witness that lives in the area that witnessed both slides. So I guess we will give them your contact information and vice versa, so that can happen now.
Absolutely. And,
thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to be up there later in the week, so hopefully I can touch base with that person face to face, and we can dig into that one a little more.
Adrian, the day after that the slope or this slide occurred, I was on the phone to the mine inspector that issued the permit out of Prince George, and I asked him what premise did he issue that permit on, and we were getting down to the point of a geotechnical study for the slope stability of that site. And he said, yes, a geotechnical study was done. He confirmed to me, the mine inspector, that it was the mines ministry geotechnical expertise that gave DSAN Holdings the information. So in other words, DSAN Holdings did not do an independent geotechnical study. It was done by the ministry. And I think that that's a conflict of interest.
So the ministry wouldn't carry out that work. We would put permit conditions requiring the mine to carry it out. They did not do a study for these stockpiles. I'll just be really clear on that. However, a stockpile study would have looked at basically the base of the pile, making sure that you had a solid ground. That might be why we saw, a layer of gravel being put down on top. It wouldn't have detected something further down the slope necessarily, but that is something that, will be part of our investigation.
I was privy to that same conversation with the gentleman from Prince George, and he distinctly said that it was the geotech people from the government who did the study that permitted the mine. He distinctly said that. There was no doubt about it. And he also said that he was aware of the instabilities of the slopes of the Peace River banks, that he's been up here himself and he has looked at the banks and he was aware of the instability. And in no uncertain terms, he said it was the geotech engineers from the government who did the study to permit it.
So I think you're probably referring to the northeast portion of the gravel pit. This wasn't where this slide occurred. Going back to the 80s or 90s, there was a failure on someone's property that's up to the northeast and above the gravel pit after material had been removed. So there were some studies that went into that and some conditions around no further removal of material up in that portion. There was an offset, I believe, prescribed where they could dig up to. They didn't actually do any digging up there at all, just to be clear on that. And they had come up with a geotechnical design for a dump that was going to go in there, and it was actually, the idea was the dump would buttress and support that portion in the northeast that had failed by building up material at the base of it. What we're seeing here is almost the opposite idea of that, where the support material further down on the south has given way and caused that whole block to just slide down. It's something that is probably common in the region. It's something that I've personally seen a lot of up in the oil sands, where you'll see a shovel come in and dig out a mound of dirt, and then an upper layer will slide down just because that material supporting it has given way, and the ground conditions around the river are very similar to what you have up around Fort McMurray, but there were no studies done on the slope and the south end of the property.
Okay, I don't know if this is necessarily for him or for everybody, but from a liability standpoint, it's concerning that July and August were not reported to you guys, whether it's on their permit area or not. Also, if you're saying that the stockpiles aren't under your jurisdictions, who are they under? Because the load of the hill there would have been studies saying how much that hillside can hold. So I guess we just have a lot of questions around that. I have more to my question. I don't know if you're going to answer that, but since from a homeowner's perspective, landslides are not covered in, I think, anybody's insurance. So we're all facing huge losses. It's an exclusion. So for liability, is somebody looking to see who is going to be liable for this at the end of the day? I know the province is paying for stuff right now, but if it's not a natural cause, are you looking for someone to pin this on, or is it going to be on us that we need to group together and get our own resources put together so that in the end we're going after this company, if that is the case? What else? Yeah, like obviously there's going to be fault placed somewhere, so should we be getting our ducks in a row now?
So the stockpiles are under restriction. What I'm saying is they viewed the stockpiles as only temporary, and they did not do a study on the weight of those stockpiles. So to answer your question is no. In terms of liability and insurance, I can't really comment on that. My focus is on immediate health and safety and making sure that what the activities that are going on right now are being done in a safe manner, both for the town and for the people who are working on the site. In terms of liability and insurance, that's just something I can't comment on.
If a little bit of common sense could take place here, you might ask the question, why would a very large, heavy pile of crushed material be stockpiled right on the edge of an historically unstable valley?
Yeah, and those are the things that we'll be looking into with our investigation, so I appreciate that comment.
This isn't a question for Energy Mines. I'm not too sure if the regional district or if the RCMP can answer it. A lot of questions, obviously, we're looking at. I mean, I think we're all very aware that nobody's going home right away. Talking about security of residences that are being asked to be left open, and it's going to be dark down there. There's only a few points of entry. It doesn't sound like. I don't think I'd be comfortable yet. Just having, a couple points of entry where there's a security guard. There needs to be, I think, a bigger plan where someone's on the ground or there's eyes on the ground or cameras that's monitoring the area. I would think that that's something that I don't think I've heard addressed yet today. So I'm not sure if you can answer that or Steve can answer that.
Well, from the RCMP standpoint, we'll be taking our direction from the PRRD. I know they're going to have a security detail. If this is going to be going on for a number of months, I mean, it's not sustainable for us to have an active police presence in that area 24/7 for months on end. I mean, we don't have the resources or the capability to do that. So we'll be looking for, a private or publicly funded security firm to do that. And they'll be the eyes and ears of what's going on in that area. And of course, if there's an issue or concern, they'll call us. And like any incident, any call to the police, will respond and investigate appropriately.
And in terms of long-term, those are some good ideas, and we'll add that into probably our medium-term planning. But our priority right now will be to try to get entry permits issued. So for those who would like an entry permit, and it's probably everyone here, Kristen's got some at the back. What we're going to ask you to do is fill those out, give us some information on what it is that you need and why, and then we're going to send those down to our EOC. They will contact you by phone to talk about them more, and then they will issue you the permit with the conditions. And those might be when you can go and when you have to be out by. They'll issue those and they'll send it to you by text or email, or if we have to find another means where you can pick it up at our office or we drop it off at your hotel, we'll make sure that we can make those arrangements. Mm-hmm.
So,
What type of things are we going to be able to take out for this? Like, is it food from a fridge and freezers, animals? What type of things are we looking at taking out right now?
I would ask you to prioritize what you think you need out right now, and then we're gonna look at that. Right, I know there are some folks who have their pets down there. There's medications, but we have to understand, it has to be what can fit on the boat right now, right? And so we have to make sure that, somebody's coming out with 4 Great Pyrenees and 6 cats, that we can get them on and off the boat, right? Yeah, and that's gonna be a little bit longer. Yes, go ahead, friend, at the back.
so we've talked about the different phases, the phase 1, the entry level, the phase 2, mid and long term for phase 3. But for some of us with larger families and stuff like that are in hotels and we have to go down and grab some of our stuff, where are we supposed to bring our stuff? Not all of it's gonna fit in little hotel rooms.
No, yeah. And I think unfortunately, it's gonna have to go into storage. So, but you could put as much information on those entry permits as possible. You can phone our EOC and talk to our staff about concerns about what the volume looks like, all that sort of stuff, because it's like we talked about the road, it's changing as Plan A and B and C go on, so.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. We
There's a
need to do
question
it
in
on
the
the
middle.
microphone so that live feed can hear it. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a question for the RCMP. Earlier you said that your primary concern is people coming down the hill. Considering that most of the people up to now have been going back and forth via boat, isn't that kind of negligent to think other people in the community couldn't come in by boat once we're gone?
Perhaps I didn't make my point clear. What I was trying to say before is, because up until now, the egress is being by the city lagoons down the hill for access up until now. So that is being our primary focus, is assisting with those checkpoints. We have had RCMP come in via boat. There was one day last week, and again, when we're doing these permits are being executed, we'll have the RCMP down there to assist at that time. The Fort St. John RCMP doesn't have a riverboat, and so we don't have ready access to that. If there's a need, we can get it. Typically, that'd be done through search and rescue. We had solicited their assistance in getting us places in the past via boat.
So does that mean, I guess, a residence would have to be broken into before the RCMP realizes that the river is still a very useful access for theft and other things like that? Or how does that work?
Well, yeah, Trish is just going to discuss that.
Yeah, so we not only have security and flaggers on land, but we do have security in a boat as well that's patrolling back and forth.
And just to finish off that point, so with the security detail, I mean, they'll be the eyes and ears. And if they witness something, they will call us. And well, it depends on each individual situation.
Waiting for them to dock, or?
Well, it's hard to give you an answer on every unique situation. Every situation is different.
I'll tell you that. And this does not need to turn into a fight like that.
No, well, as I said in my earlier comments, if you're asking the RSP, I don't know, I'm getting a few questions here. It's hard to address them all. I'll do the best I can. But from the RCMP standpoint, our primary concern is public safety. So when we have the experts and we have the PRRD telling us that there is a risk, a safety risk down in that area, and that there's to be an evacuation order in place, it's our role to ensure that the residents of, in this particular case, the Old Fort area, are safe. And if people choose to go down there, I mean, there's going to be security checkpoints, and we're going to tell people not to go down there. If people choose to ignore that and go down there, it's at their own peril. Because if the slide continues and it becomes a bigger safety risk, the police, the fire department, other first responders may not be able to come down to help you. So, you know, and everybody's individual planning process, what they decide to do, they have to take that in consideration because there may not be help coming. Somebody may be injured and BC ambulance is not coming, at least not right away. I mean, we have the means to get in eventually, but you may be on your own for a period of time because we're not going to put, this evacuation is in order, is in place now for people to be safe, okay? And if the situation deteriorates to the point where first responders can't go down there because it's unsafe for us to do it, we won't go. Just to jump back to this other gentleman's concerns about, you know, we have thieves going by boat. Of course, there is always that potential. I mean, again, each individual situation is unique. If we have an ability to intercept the boat when it gets to a buoy launch somewhere, I mean, if it's a bigger issue, I mean, we have an RCMP helicopter out of Prince George that can be here within an hour, depending on the, you know, the weather pattern, et cetera. So there's different means to us available. Again, we do our risk assessment based on each individual situation. Our action and our deployment will, again, our response will be based on that unique set of circumstances. So I can't give you a catch-all answer, but we assess and reassess the situation on an ongoing basis and will respond the best we can under those circumstances.
Excuse me, we need to talk into the mic so that the live feed people can hear your answers, and I am trying to get around. So keep your hand up and I will come around.
In regard to the temporary measure that we're going home real quick for emergency stuff, what's the exact timeline? Are we going tonight? Are we going tomorrow morning? Is this next week?
We may be able to get some people in tonight.
When are you guys going to change it from short term to long term? Like, what are your guys' timeline?
So from going from short-term planning to long-term, it's all of it's being done at the same time. No, we understand that.
So you guys got to give us a timeline.
Oh, we understand that. So we only had an initial assessment done. That Rhonda only started Friday night. So, and understanding that the situation changed dramatically between Tuesday and Saturday. So. No, we're planning everything at the same time. We have a short-term planning unit and we have an advanced planning unit, which is long-term, and they're working on that at the same time.
So are you willing to let us know what those plans are? Like, is the short-term plan hotels? Is the mid-term plan rentals? Is the long-term plan possibly a buyout? What is happening in the community and what are going to be the plans?
Yes, so right now, short-term planning is getting people in on entry permits to get the things they need that are small items, pets, that sort of thing. Long-term planning will be how do we get out vehicles, your other personal items that are larger, if it's, and I can't answer that one. I'm going to put that one to Tony, unfortunately.
The question was about housing.
Yeah, on the long term, as she said, short-term is ESS, that's providing your commercial lodging or billeting. But long-term, obviously, that'll have to be looked at. And until we kind of know from the geotechnical kind of stuff, then we can plan for that with the regional district, looking forward on that.
That's not an answer. That's not an answer.
So,
I can't give you an answer.
You're still here 2 weeks. Yeah, and in right now, I can't give you that answer because we don't know the long term.
Going back till summer, if we're lucky.
Where
have you been during this meeting?
I understand that, but we got to work with the regional district and seeing and planning that out. As she's.
Can we have a meeting tomorrow to let us know what your plan is for that? It shouldn't take more than 24 hours.
No.
Figure out a long-term plan for us. We're not going back home till next summer.
Do you want to
We live
answer
right
that?
under the slide.
You talk.
I hear your pain, but unfortunately what has to happen to start with is the short-term needs, and I'm talking about livestock, personal items, so they can plan for that. As far as long-term goes, it sounds to me like you're right, probably there's not going to be any access back there till sometime next summer. There's no guarantee of that, something could change, but I think that's probably what they're looking at, and they have to figure out what everybody's needs are to start with. How many people? Do you require storage? What kind of lodging are you going to require? All of this stuff is going to have to be sorted out. So there's going to be a multitude of these kinds of meetings. As directors, we want to hear from you folks what's working and what isn't working about the process. Staff will work with what your needs and trying to do the planning for you. But unfortunately, because of the flux of the situation, there just isn't some answers right now. And there will be, as quick as they can get them to you, and decisions are made from emergency management. They need to know, okay, they need to hear from other people to decide how they're going to deal with it, because they don't know how long-term. But short-term, and that's what we need to start on. If we're going to get anybody and any stuff out of there today, we got to get these forms filled out. We've got to get the access, how it's going to work. I understand the fellow's concerns about geez, I got my stuff. Well, here's the other side of that. If we have people coming and going and we don't know who's there, what if something does happen? We don't even know where to look for them. So there has to be something in place in order for folks to be able to get access and for us to be able to monitor who's in there and when they're coming out. So nobody's here trying to make your lives miserable. That's already happened. We're here to try and solve some of the problems. Some of these folks have been on this now for 16 hours a day since it started. So I think probably going forward, we need to get busy on our entry permits and figure out what we need. And if you got suggestions on what might work better, all the directors will be hanging around here for as long as you want to talk about it and taking notes of that. A lot of this stuff will be changed in the future that doesn't work when you have a chance to really evaluate how well or what didn't work. But right now, moving forward, it's the short-term stuff and working on the medium to long-term.
Oh, thanks. Thanks very much. I think that ties really well into my question. I've been at a few of these meetings already, and every time I kind of talk about the same thing. And now I'm getting even more concerned because I don't see it happening, and I really want us all to work together. Like this community wants to work with all you guys in order to make sure that we all align our goals and action these solutions. That is what we want. I'm a little bit concerned about the collaboration. My comment is to EMBC, or question, what are you doing to collaborate? I'd like to see a daily meeting out of all the key people here. This solution does not get hammered out by creating a plan and then presenting it to the next department. I know what these plans look like. I've worked in government organizations before. I've dealt with red tape before. A plan to a plan to a plan does not action the solution. Sitting in a room with Ed from BC Hydro, with Rhonda from Geotech, with Scott from Ministry, and you got to all sit down and look and say, hey, we can hammer out a road here. And Ed says, hey, I just got the thumbs up on my umbilical. I can run that through there. And Rhonda says, hey, I can carve out a piece of that red, because this is how we action this solution. This is what I look to EMBC to say, we are having a daily meeting at 11 o'clock, And I also challenge you to have a few representatives from the fort out there in that meeting, and we can let you know what our concerns are. You talk about we haven't talked to property owners yet. We can get the property owners together. The property owners can be sitting in that meeting and say, we do not agree for you to procure land, but we can hammer out an agreement in 20 minutes that says you can run a road across our property and we can have this thing nailed out easy. But we cannot go from plan to plan. So my question is to EMBC, are you actioning that type of solution? If so, when, where, how many people are going? Keep us in the loop and invite us. We want to be part of it.
So I can assure you there are meetings every day. They're 2 o'clock, I believe. There's one today at 2 o'clock. And all the agencies are involved in that. So that's where a lot of the concerns that were coming through, the geotechnical and stuff, and Ministry of Highways being on the call, talking about different options, all that is being talked about every day for that. So I can assure you those meetings are happening, and they'll continue to happen, and hopefully provide more and more answers as we get more certainty.
I think that's a lie. You were not there this last week. You've been down in Vancouver. You've not been coordinating this thing. I have heard it from the people.
I've been on that call every day. Sorry. For those operation calls, those are just ministry calls. That's what they're doing on that. These kind of public, these is where we, regional. Well, you have representatives probably on those calls, right? The regional district will provide information.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We'll consider the suggestion. I think Director Rose wants to say something.
Come on, don't put him off that way. Give the guy an answer. Don't put him off that way.
Okay, the regional district.
He deserves a lot more of an answer than we'll just consider the suggestion. He was very well put. He was a very well put question by a very intelligent man, and you just shot him down with 2 words saying, we'll consider it. We'll just consider that option. That's not what he's asking for. It was very, very clear to me. I got 2 ears. He put forward a question that was very clear and well put. And the answer you put was, how soon can we get everybody out of the room here when the meeting's over? Thank you very much. Let's go home.
I kind of agree. How soon can we get everybody out of the room here so we can get working on the first stage of this, of getting your forms filled out so we can start dealing with the problems we have to deal with firsthand. As far as communication goes, there are daily video updates on the progressions on the Regional District website. As a director, we're committed to minimum of having these meetings at least every 2 weeks, and if there's a reason to have them within a week or within a few days, that will facilitate that. But in the meantime, we need to get moving on getting pets out and other things before daylight. Daylight's wasting this time of year, so.
I have a question going back to housing and storage of people's possessions. I know right now you can't tell us the future of our housing, but can you tell us in the history of BC, have rental apartments or housing been covered by the government? Has storage of people's possessions been covered by the government?
Sorry?
Historically in BC, has the government paid for rental apartments and housings for people in situations like this? And have they paid to house people's possessions in storage? Have they covered those costs for people?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't have the long history with this organization, so I can get back to you on that. Definitely, we can provide maybe more answers to that. Especially when we look forward, because the long-range planning, we'll have to look at that for sure.
So I just want to comment, just kind of moving back to what you had said prior. You're forgetting that we live down here. We live there. We deserve to be involved, and I really feel like you guys are just brushing us off to the side. Like, just sit back, we've got it handled. We don't know that. You guys aren't telling us anything. You say you have a plan in place. Nobody is telling us what that possible plan is. I'm sure we would all understand if you said, hey, these are the options we're looking at, And if one of those options fell through, hey, we can't do this anymore because this is why. But there is no communication. Nobody's telling us anything. We live down there. This doesn't affect you like it affects all of us.
So can I ask, what's the best way to communicate with you? Because we've been sending things out in multiple ways, and let me list them first, okay? So, and some of them work for some people and some of them don't, and we understand that. So we've got website, we've got our Facebook, we've got your Facebook, we've got a number of community people that are down there that we've been talking to multiple times a day that have been telling us your concerns, and we've been trying to address those by changing plans, switching plans, saying, hey, that's a great idea, let's work with that, and then doing our video updates. So what is a better way, and I just want to ask first, what is the best way to get the message out about the plans?
So it doesn't, it's not the matter of communication, it's what is being communicated, what is being left out, what you guys are not telling us. You say you have these plans, you say you're working on things, but you are not communicating what those plans are, what avenues you're going down, what options you're looking at. You are leaving all of us completely in the dark. Completely in the dark.
You guys have reiterated the same things to us for the past 8 days.
Yeah,
Nothing has changed.
you keep telling us what's happened. Yeah, we know. We know. We're down there. We know before you know. Stop telling us what's happened. Tell us what you are going to do, what you are planning on doing. Don't just tell us we have a plan. We need to know what those plans are.
Okay, so I want to be really clear. The plans that we were working on was getting that water line in. Our contractor could not get the water line in because people kept going up and down the road, because our plan was to fill the cistern. Then our plan was next to work on making sure those people who had sewer needs, we could get the sewer needs out. That we could also make sure that we got your garbage out. That we could make sure that if, for those who wanted to get their kids to school, we were working with the school district so they could be transported on the boat with their parent, but then go directly from there to a school bus so they could go to their schools and come back. And so I'm sorry if that information wasn't clearly communicated, but those are all the things that we were working on until there was a game changer and we had to work on an evacuation plan.
Please be aware too, if you're gonna, like the lady asked about storage, if that's gonna be one of your needs, make sure you put it on the, because we can't do it if we don't know. If we need storage.
We need storage.
Well, put it on your necessary needs. How much? You know, do you need, how many cubic feet? We need to know what you need in order to be able to be reactionary to it.
It's our houses, it's our lives in there. There's 30 years of life in that house, and you're gonna say, do we need storage? Like, that's crazy to think that we wouldn't. I have 8 people living in my home, 2 small children. I'm gonna need more than a Super 8 hotel, which I'm grateful for right now, but my God, that's my life down there. And you guys are telling me, pack what you need. Let's hope the thieves don't catch the rest. Let's hope insurance doesn't find out that it's been stolen, because it won't be covered. That's my life down there. That's my life. We're sorry, we can't maintain, you know, we have checkpoints. There's evil people out there. My whole life is down there. And you're gonna ask me if I need storage? Jeez.
How about just something simple like getting people's vehicles out by a landing craft? An oil company moves landing craft up and down on the Fort Nelson River, the Liard. Come on. And you can do that tomorrow. How long is it going to be for the road? Right? You're not even given a timeline. The road's real simple. It's a fucking island. Right? It's not moving.
And why does the RCMP have a boat up here yet? It's in Chetwynd. Why hasn't it been up here since day one? That's kind of a joke.
I hear your frustration. A lot of it, I think, will resolve itself over the coming days, but please work with us on it. If we don't know what your needs are, we can't help to accommodate them.
Can we have another meeting tomorrow about long-term?
I would think probably maybe, you know, it won't be tomorrow, but it'll be soon. I don't set meeting dates, but I think as soon as we have something concrete to offer, then we'll certainly be getting back to you guys to let you know what's on the, when we have more information. Obviously, we're lacking information. Over the next week, I expect a lot of that'll be, will clarify itself, and at that point, we'll certainly be setting up another one of these. And you guys will have more questions then too, as far as this isn't working, or we need to do this.
I have a question.
And you can, meanwhile, you can always phone the EOC, keep us advised of your needs.
I'd like to ask a question. I noticed that you can produce wall charts very well. I need to see an organizational chart of who's who in this area. I don't want to say zoo, but that's what it appears to me. You've started with the Peace River Regional District, and then it trickles down from there. But I need to see the the emergency management people, the geotech, like the agencies that are representing us as taxpayers. I want to know who's who. I don't, and the names. Somebody has mentioned a name, maybe a first name, but I need to know the last names of everybody that's involved in this. Because when this first started, and I'm pretty savvy at getting information, but I was at a loss at finding out, and figuring out who's the emergency management part of BC, who's ESS, how does that link together? How does Peace River Regional District decide on who to call in what ministries? And exactly what ministries are involved? Because at the end of the day, we're going to be making some phone calls, and I don't want to waste my time. I want to make the right phone calls. And thank God we've got Bob Zimmer here and Dan Davies, our representative, and Brad Sperling. But we need to know as public people that own these properties down in the fort, who's who.
I don't see any reason why we can't provide you a flow chart at our next meeting as far as who's doing what. Anything else?
Sure, me again. If you're not going to stop the people from going down the old fort that live there, why are you hindering them? I saw a pile of concrete, meridians, buried, whatever you want to call them, being hauled in there with a loader last night and unloaded. Looks to me like you're planning on blocking off the road at the top of the hill. I don't have a quad, I don't have side-by-sides, I don't have that ability. But I know there's other people who live down there that do. So why would you make it more difficult for them to access their properties in that? Why not make it easier and safer for them if we're going to do it anyways? I think the RCMP is involved in that one.
No, I probably partly they are involved in that because you can't secure a place if you don't know who's in there. It's important that we know who's in there, when they're in there, when they're going to be leaving, if something happens. If we don't know who's in there.
But that's what I'm talking about. Are the gates going to be left open? Are they still going to have an ease of access to get their quads and their side-by-sides up and down that hill? In the meantime, or are you blocking off the top of the hill with the cement meridian?
It's going to be blocked off, and the only people that are going to be allowed access are the ones that have filled out the forms and said what they're going for, when they're going to be there, and when they're leaving.
Why? Why? Aren't we adults enough? Those of us that have homes down there, we're not responsible enough. We've been in this country. I've been here 65 years, and this, run the mountains, run the hunting, run everything else. This is minor. And you're going to say to me, you're going to make my decision for me whether or not I'm safe to walk down to my house or whether my friend's safe enough to ride a squatter side by side. Who are you guys to make that decision for us? This is our livelihood. This is our future. These are our homes. And who are you to make the decision for? For the kids? No problem. But we're not kids. We're
No,
adults.
and I don't think that we're
us.
concerned about you. I think we're concerned about once you lose that control about who's in there for what period of time, you don't know who's in there and who's not. And if there's nobody supposed to be in there and there's somebody spotted in there, then we can do something about it. But if there's people coming and going at will, you lose any kind of control over it. So you're either going to have security or you're not.
Put up a control
Sir,
gate and allow the people in and
someone
out.
else has
We're
the
still having
microphone.
just one thing. Put up a control gate and allow the people to go in and out through it. You have a list of their names. The RCMP are very competent individuals in this town. They're very capable of taking people's names and identification of the people that are going in and out down that hill. That's not hard to do. And they're very competent individuals.
That was pretty much my suggestion was, I've drove through a couple of your checkpoints and the people don't even look at you when you drive by. I think we should get a name, license number, so these gentlemen, in the event of eluding, have something to work with.
All the time, like on our road, hey? Yeah.
Like a red car.
We're at the top.
Just to elaborate a little bit further, I mean, again, I can't underscore enough when we're talking about the RCMP, our role is public safety. open the floodgates and giving people full access up and down the hill to Old Fort. If that hill does give away suddenly, which, I'm led to believe that there is a potential it could, and if that happens, our ability and other first responders' ability to help those people that are down there is going to be minimal. If we've got the permits and there's limited access there, that's great. But there's a few people, we can manage that. But if we have, I don't know, there's 60 plus houses down there, so what is there, 200 plus people living down Old Fort? If the vast majority of those people are down there, how is the RCMP and search and rescue and the fire department and BC Ambulance, how are we going to coordinate a widespread evacuation and be able to help those people in the event of emergency when there's 200 plus people down there? If there's permits issued and we're allowing 5 or 6 people down there at a time, that's much easier for us to manage at that level than trying to manage a large amount of people. And I agree that having some sort of process to log people in and out, that's what the RCMP does. Anytime we have a crime scene, we log people in and out so we can control and we know who is or is not in that area at that particular time. But by having that element of control, it allows us to respond accordingly, and it helps us, if there is unauthorized people going down there, it helps us have that information. And saying all that though, like I said in my opening speech, we've had a great deal of cooperation, and the people of the Old Fort subdivision have been gracious enough to cooperate by and large with the evacuation yesterday. But not everybody cooperates. We have a checkpoint, and unless there's some measures put in place to create these physical barriers, people may just ignore the security personnel and just go down there. So whether it's a resident or somebody that shouldn't be down there, if they choose not to stop at the checkpoint, well, they're unarmed security. They're not trained to that level to deal with those types of situations. And if so by having these physical barriers in place, it assists with controlling and restricting that access. So access isn't being blocked off totally, but we have to have that element of control in order for the process to go smoothly. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, thank you.
I think we can wrap this up now, but please be patient. It's hard. Nobody at the Regional District Emergency Operations Center is working against anybody. They're all working towards solutions, and certainly they're never quick enough. I understand your frustration. I would probably be in a similar state myself. But let's get through this next week and see where we're at. Thanks for coming out.
It's only been a week. We're going to keep on doing short-term planning. Never have a financial advisor that told you,